So, King Charles watched his wife of nearly 20 years get escorted out of Clarence House with barely 48 hours to pack her bags. And the reason behind this total institutional collapse is something nobody saw coming. We're not talking about simple marriage problems, behind-the-scenes royal tension, or some slow building, quiet separation that palace spin doctors could cover up. We're talking about explosive, secret bank accounts in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the Cayman Islands containing millions of pounds that nobody inside the royal inner circle knew existed until a sudden, forensic financial audit tripped over them. The fallout was so fast, so severe, and so terrifyingly ruthless that even senior aides inside Buckingham Palace are still shaking, trying to process how decades of absolute trust completely disintegrated overnight. The king didn't just ask for space. He reportedly went straight to emergency channels to sever her titles, leaving the queen consort stripped of the legacy she spent nearly half a century trying to build. But what could possibly be hidden inside those encrypted offshore networks that made Charles turn against the woman he spent a lifetime defending? What secret origin did that money have? And who else inside the royal family was quietly tied to this secret ledger? Stay right there, because what was uncovered inside those accounts is about to change the House of Windsor forever. To truly understand the catastrophic magnitude of this moment, you have to rewind the clock and look at the fragile foundation this entire relationship was built upon. For nearly 50 years, the love story of King Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles was portrayed as the ultimate royal marathon, a relentless, decades-long battle against public hostility, institutional resistance, and the permanent shadow of Princess Diana. When they finally tied the knot in 2005, it wasn't just a wedding. It was a massive, carefully orchestrated public relations campaign designed to rehabilitate an image that had been battered by years of tabloid scandal. Charles had risked his own popularity, his relationship with the British public, and even his standing within his own family to ensure that the woman he loved would one day sit beside him as his queen. For years, that strategy seemed to work. Camilla quietly took on hundreds of royal patronages, kept her head down, and slowly won over a skeptical nation through sheer persistence and unwavering loyalty to the crown. To the outside world, she was the steadying force behind the king, the rock he relied on as he navigated the grief of losing Queen Elizabeth II and the immense pressure of stepping onto the throne. But behind the gilded doors of the royal residences, the financial reality of the crown was undergoing a radical, unprecedented shift. In recent years, public demand for absolute transparency regarding royal finances reached an all-time high. The British government, facing mounting political pressure over how public funds were allocated to the monarchy, introduced rigorous, modern transparency mandates. These regulations meant that every single entity attached to the royal household, including the private estates, allowances, and secondary accounts of senior working royals, would be subjected to independent, forensic audits. For decades, the private wealth of the royal family was treated like a fortress, protected by layers of ancient privacy laws, royal prerogatives, and discretion. But these new compliance measures stripped away those historic protections. The audit wasn't launched to target anyone specifically. It was framed as a routine, modernized checkup designed to prove to the public that the monarchy had nothing to hide. Independent forensic accountants, completely separate from the palace's internal legal teams, were brought in to comb through thousands of transactions, property deeds, and institutional allowances spanning over 2 decades. When the auditors began their work, the king's financial portfolio was cleared almost immediately, pristine, heavily documented, and fully compliant with state regulations. Next in line was the office of the queen consort. On paper, Camilla's financial footprint was supposed to be remarkably straightforward. Her funding primarily consisted of her official stipend from the Duchy of Lancaster, standard household operating allowances, and modest personal wealth inherited from her previous marriage and family estate. It was, by all conventional accounts, supposed to be a routine 3-day review that would result in a standard rubber stamp approval. Instead, auditors stumbled upon a series of minor, seemingly harmless clerical discrepancies that didn't add up. It started with a sequence of recurring administrative fees, small, periodic sums earmarked for state management and international advisory services, routed through a discreet financial firm based in Luxembourg. To a casual observer, a few £1,000s listed under vague corporate terminology might seem like a simple accounting oversight or an unorganized paper trail. But to top-tier forensic accountants trained to spot international wealth concealment, vague explanations for specific cash flows are the ultimate red flag. When investigators pushed for the official receipts, contract agreements, and direct lines of communication regarding these Luxembourg payments, the palace's internal accounting office couldn't provide them. The documentation was missing, obscured behind layer after layer of shell corporations and non-disclosure agreements. The deeper the forensic team dug into those Luxembourg transfers, the clearer it became that this wasn't a clerical error at all. It was an entry point, a tiny, deliberately concealed hatch leading down into a massive, multi-million-pound network of offshore accounts spanning Switzerland, Zurich, and the Cayman Islands. What made this initial discovery so chilling for senior aides was the sheer level of sophistication involved. These weren't basic personal savings accounts opened in a local branch under a maiden name. This was a complex, highly secure financial labyrinth designed by elite international tax lawyers and wealth managers specifically to hide the existence of millions of pounds from the British Treasury, from Parliament, and, most dangerously, from King Charles himself. Leaked internal memos from the auditing firm allegedly reveal that the accounts weren't static, they were alive with ongoing activity. Regular, structured deposits had been flowing into these private vaults for years, continuing straight through Charles's accession to the throne and well into Camilla's tenure as queen consort. The immediate realization inside the auditing room sent shockwaves through the royal establishment. This wasn't just hidden family money or an old pre-marriage trust fund that someone had forgotten to report on a tax form. This was an active, long-term, secret financial operation being run right from the very heart of the royal household. And as the forensic team prepared to brief senior palace officials, one horrifying question hung in the air. Where was all this money actually coming from? And why had the queen consort gone to such extreme lengths to ensure her own husband never knew a single thing about it? The undeniable explosion occurred in late November at Clarence House, the historic private residence where Charles and Camilla had lived quietly away from the public gaze. It was a cold Thursday evening when senior forensic investigator Sarah Mitchell walked into the private secretary's office carrying a heavy, leather-bound briefcase containing the audit's definitive, horrifying findings. Inside were bank account opening forms, encrypted transaction ledgers, wire receipts, and official corporate registration papers from the British Virgin Islands. The documents proved beyond any shadow of a doubt that Queen Camilla was the sole ultimate beneficial owner of 3 secret Swiss accounts in Geneva and Zurich, a holding entity in Luxembourg, and a massive multi-million-pound trust fund stationed in the Cayman Islands. The combined total sitting quietly in these offshore vaults wasn't just pocket change, it was a staggering £8.5 million. When the file was placed in front of King Charles, the atmosphere inside the room turned ice-cold. Witnesses say the king stared at the papers in total, paralyzing silence for what felt like an eternity. He reportedly read the names on the accounts, scanned the transaction dates, and stared directly at Camilla's signature written clearly across the opening documents. The man had spent nearly 50 years fighting his own family, his country, and the global media just to be with this woman, was looking at absolute proof that she had been hiding an entire financial empire from him for their entire marriage. Charles immediately demanded an immediate, face-to-face confrontation. He dismissed his private secretaries, his communications officers, and his personal aides, insisting on remaining in the private study with only 2 royal protection officers stationed outside the thick oak doors for protocol. When Camilla stepped into the study at 7:15 p.m., expecting a routine conversation about upcoming public engagements, she found Charles sitting motionless behind his desk. Arranged before him in precise chronological order were years of hidden bank statements. The confrontation that followed was nothing short of explosive. Charles reportedly pointed at the files, his voice trembling with anger and heartbreak, and asked a single, devastating question. How could you do this to me? At first, Camilla attempted to dismiss the entire file, claiming the accounts were harmless pre-marriage savings, old family trusts, or simply unorganized personal funds from her past life. But Charles cut her off instantly, pointing to transaction logs showing active, recurring transfers pouring into the Cayman accounts throughout 2023, 2024, and well into 2025, long after she had been crowned queen consort. As the king pressed harder, demanding to know the true origin of the money, Camilla's composure shattered completely. Panic set in as she realized that the forensic auditors hadn't just found the accounts, they had traced the wire paths. And that is when she dropped the first horrifying twist that turned a personal marriage betrayal into a nuclear institutional crisis. Through tears, Camilla allegedly confessed that the millions sitting in those offshore accounts didn't belong to her personal estate at all. She claimed she had opened the network years ago to secretly hold, move, and shield money on behalf of another member of the royal family, disgraced Prince Andrew. According to her story, when Prince Andrew was drowning in massive legal bills, multi-million-pound court settlements, and total financial ruin following his high-profile scandals, he turned to Camilla for help. Fearing that any direct financial rescue from the king or the royal estate would cause an unstoppable public outcry, Camilla agreed to act as a secret financial buffer. She allowed Andrew's shadowy international backers, wealthy private donors, and questionable offshore associates to route money through her private accounts, hiding it behind layers of shell companies before quietly filtering the funds out to settle Andrew's crushing debts. The revelation was an absolute sledgehammer to the king's chest. If Camilla was telling the truth, she wasn't just keeping a personal secret. She had voluntarily turned the office of the queen consort into a hidden, illegal laundering system for the monarchy's most toxic relative. She had exposed the crown to potential criminal investigations, tax evasion scandals, and complete institutional destruction, all behind Charles's back. The emotional fallout inside that room was immediate and terrifying. Charles reportedly rose from his chair, his face red with fury, and declared that her actions were an unforgivable act of treason against his trust and his reign. He told her plainly that by choosing to hide these operations, she had made him an unwitting accomplice to the very scandal he had spent years trying to distance the monarchy from. When Camilla tried to approach him, pleading that she had only done it to protect the family from further public humiliation, Charles reportedly put his hand up, refusing to let her touch him. He walked to the door, opened it, and gave a strict, non-negotiable directive to the security detail. Queen Camilla was to be given precisely 48 hours to collect her personal belongings from Clarence House. She was to be stripped of her official access codes, removed from the royal schedule immediately, and escorted off the premises under dark cover of night. The woman who had spent decades climbing to the top of the British monarchy was being cast out in disgrace, leaving the entire royal institution teetering on the absolute edge of collapse. Word of Camilla's sudden eviction spread through the palace corridors like wildfire, but what happened over the next 24 hours escalated this crisis into a global media meltdown. As news of the 48-hour notice leaked to major news networks, the initial narrative put out by palace spin doctors, citing routine scheduling adjustments and private family matters, was instantly blown to pieces on social media. Within hours, #royal laundering, #where is Camilla, and #Clarence House eviction were trending worldwide, generating millions of posts across X, TikTok, and Instagram. An anonymous X account, widely believed to be an insider close to the forensic auditing team, dropped a series of explosive tweets that sent shockwaves through the global financial sector. The thread posted blurred photographs of leaked wire transfer summaries, detailing multi-million-pound transactions originating from offshore accounts directly linked to the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg trusts. The online public went into absolute hysterics. Social media users began connecting the dots, analyzing past public appearances and cross-referencing event dates with the dates listed on the leaked financial documents. One viral post on X with over 15 million views stated, "If the Queen Consort was secretly routing millions through offshore shell companies while the UK public faced severe economic hardship, this isn't just a royal scandal. This is a constitutional crime. Parliament needs to step in immediately." Major political figures and international commentators quickly joined the fray. Former government officials and prominent anti-monarchy campaign leaders took to live television, demanding an emergency parliamentary inquiry into the entirety of the royal family's private wealth. Celebrity commentators and royal experts were openly divided, with some calling for complete institutional transparency and others accusing the palace of executing a ruthless, sexist smear campaign to scapegoat Camilla for systemic royal failures. Back behind palace walls, the pressure reached a boiling point. Prince William was summoned for an emergency strategy session with the king's top legal advisors. Leaked palace memos suggest William's stance was uncompromisingly aggressive. He recognized that if the public believed King Charles was either complicit in or willfully blind to an offshore money scheme, the damage to the crown's future, and his own eventual reign, would be permanent and irreversible. William reportedly urged his father to abandon any lingering personal affection and take decisive, institutional action before Parliament forced their hand. Driven by institutional survival and sheer personal betrayal, King Charles made an unprecedented, historic move. He bypassed standard internal dispute channels and invoked emergency constitutional protocols, initiating formal communications with the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary to request emergency parliamentary action stripping Camilla of her official titles, styles, and royal status. It was a cold, calculated strike meant to completely isolate the fallout. But just as the legal machinery was set in motion, forensic investigators digging deeper into the encrypted Cayman Islands ledgers unearthed a second, horrifying revelation that shattered the entire narrative once again. The audit team discovered that the money flowing into Camilla's offshore accounts wasn't just coming from obscure international donors or Prince Andrew's desperate associates. Tracing the ultimate source of several massive wire deposits, totaling over £3 million. Investigators realized the funds originated from corporate entities linked to controversial foreign tycoons who had actively sought royal endorsements, official honors, and high-level diplomatic access over the last decade. The horrifying realization hit the inner circle. Camilla's defense that she was merely acting as a secret helper for Prince Andrew was a complete cover story. The accounts weren't built out of sisterly compassion to rescue a disgraced relative. They were part of an ongoing, highly lucrative, pay-for-access pipeline operating right out of the royal household. And the absolute most chilling detail of all? The transaction logs proved that several of these undisclosed foreign payments were deposited into the Cayman accounts during periods when King Charles was actively signing off on those exact foreign diplomatic delegations and official patronage appointments. The terrifying question that now loomed over Buckingham Palace was no longer just about what Camilla had done. The investigation was now pointing directly at the king himself. Was Charles truly an innocent victim who had been kept completely in the dark, or had his signature been quietly bought and sold without his knowledge for over 20 years? The moment the news broke, the internet didn't just react. It exploded into complete and utter digital chaos. Within hours, social media platforms transformed into a virtual war zone, with millions of users locking horns over what was quickly dubbed the most catastrophic royal scandal in modern history. The public was fiercely divided, split down the middle by outrage, disbelief, and deep-seated ideological feuds that had been simmering for decades. On X, Instagram, and TikTok, the hashtags #CamillaGate, #RoyalExile, and #Charles vs. Camilla generated billions of impressions in less than 24 hours. Millions of young viewers took to TikTok to post breakdown videos analyzing every piece of leaked audit data, creating detailed timelines of the offshore transactions, and mocking the royal family's attempts at damage control. One viral TikTok clip, featuring a creator holding up printed copies of the alleged Cayman Islands wire transfers, amassed over 25 million views in a single afternoon. The caption read, "So we're paying taxes while royal figures are allegedly running an international offshore shadow bank out of Clarence House? Tear down the palace gates already." On the other side of the digital battlefield, die-hard royal traditionalists and older generations mounted a furious online defense of Camilla. Internet forums and royal fan groups were flooded with posts claiming that the Queen Consort was being callously scapegoated by palace operatives desperate to shield Prince Andrew and protect the king's fragile reputation. On the other side of the digital battlefield, die-hard royal traditionalists and older generations mounted a furious online defense of Camilla. Internet forums and royal fan groups were flooded with posts claiming that the Queen Consort was being callously scapegoated by palace operatives desperate to shield Prince Andrew and protect the king's fragile reputation. One heavily shared post in a major royal Facebook group argued, Camilla spent 50 years enduring public hatred to support Charles. To throw her to the wolves over unverified financial clerical errors, without a full public trial, is a disgusting betrayal by a desperate king. Just as Buckingham Palace thought they could close the door on this scandal by stripping Camilla of her titles and exiling her from Clarence House, an unseen force delivered a devastating blow that brought the entire British monarchy to its knees. Late last night, an encrypted digital dossier was anonymously transmitted directly to major global news organizations, complete with private voice notes, raw bank ledgers, and signed legal affidavits. The whistleblower wasn't an outside auditor or a disgruntled palace staff member. It was someone within the royal inner sanctuary, and the contents of that leak turned this financial controversy into an existential crisis for King Charles himself. The leaked documents revealed that the offshore network in the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg wasn't built in secret by Camilla acting alone. Attached to the primary opening deeds was a secondary, sealed power of attorney contract, bearing a signature that forensic handwriting analysts have already preliminarily matched to King Charles during his time as Prince of Wales. The implication is terrifying. Charles didn't just find out about these accounts in a shocking audit briefing. The leaked files suggest he was allegedly a co-signatory to the initial offshore framework over 15 years ago. The 48-hour expulsion, the frantic parliamentary action, and the public shaming of Camilla weren't an act of an outraged husband protecting the crown's integrity. It was a desperate, calculated sacrificial move to pin the entire operation on his wife before the paper trail reached his own throne. Sources close to Camilla claim she is no longer staying silent. From her private refuge, she has reportedly instructed her legal team to prepare an explosive, unedited counterdossier titled The King's Ledger. The narrative is shifting at breakneck speed. Is Camilla a rogue operative who betrayed her husband's trust? Or is she the ultimate scapegoat taking the fall for a multi-decade financial apparatus designed by the highest office in the realm? And as emergency meetings are convened at Parliament to discuss whether the king himself must face formal questioning, one single voice message from the leak is echoing across the internet. In a leaked recording allegedly taken inside Clarence house hours before her eviction, a woman's voice can be heard saying through tears, "If I am going down for this, I am not going down alone." He signed every single document. The monarchy is entering uncharted, dangerous waters, and the ultimate truth is finally clawing its way into the light. This is an absolute royal nuclear meltdown, and the story is breaking faster than anyone can process. Now we want to hear from you, our Crown Watch community. Do you believe King Charles was completely blind to these offshore millions? Or was Camilla set up as a scapegoat to protect the king's own crown? Should Parliament launch an immediate, independent criminal investigation into the king's private accounts? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's get the debate going. If you want to stay ahead of this unfolding disaster, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you do not miss our emergency live broadcast dropping tomorrow. We will be breaking down the leaked voice recordings, analyzing the handwriting reports, and bringing you live updates as Camilla's legal team prepares to hit back. You won't want to miss a single second of what comes next on Crown Watch.